Feeding tubes. Eh. I had 2 feeding tubes, and I wanted to make a video, a raw and honest video, about how my experience was with my feeding tubes. So here we go. The first feeding tube I had was called an NG tube, and that is a feeding tube that goes down your nose into your stomach. Now, I've seen other people with NG tubes, and they look good. They look fine. They're like smaller tubes, right? I've seen people be able to just do it themselves too. That was not the experience that I had with an NG tube. So I had my big surgery at a teaching hospital, and I had a student place the NG tube. First of all, I always allow students, I allow myself to be a lab rat because they need to learn from somewhere, right? So I didn't know that the tube that she was trying to put down my nose wasn't an NG tube. I didn't know that until after it was placed and the doctor came in and he was like, oh, that's not right. I have very small nostrils, first of all. I mean, I'm not gonna show you how small they are, but they're small. And this tube was probably as thick as this pen. Yeah, that makes total sense. It was like that thick. An NG tube should be thinner than this, right? The tube that was down my nose, I'll show, here's a picture. Look at this thing. This would be much more comfortable. Anyways, she was having a really hard time getting that tube down my nose. And she kept saying, you have really small nostrils. Well, yeah. I didn't know. I've never had a feeding tube before. I didn't know that they can put a smaller tube down my nose. She didn't know either, apparently. Well, by golly, they got it down. I was stuck with that tube for 2 weeks. It was a very uncomfortable, very unpleasant experience. They weren't going to switch out the tubes because it was working. And they didn't want to traumatize me anymore by pulling that one out and putting another one down. So they just left it. So, I mean, okay. I had it for 2 weeks before I had to get a G tube or a PEG tube, whatever you want to call it. They didn't really give me much of a choice. They said that I needed it. So when I went in to have my PEG tube placed and the NG tube removed, I had that done under general anesthesia, so they put me under for it. When I woke up, I was in so much pain, and they said that, I would be in pain for a little bit because they just pushed a tube through my abdomen muscles, right? So it was gonna hurt. Not to mention, I had just had a baby not too long ago, and I was still healing. So I went home. I was on pain medicine. The pain just kept getting worse and worse. I could not get comfortable. I was crying because I was in so much pain. It was worse than childbirth. I've had a natural birth before. I would much rather have a natural birth than ever go through that pain again. That pain was brutal. So I went back to the ER, and they sent me to another hospital. That ambulance ride was brutal. It was horrible because every little pothole they would go over, every little bump they would drive over hurt so bad. They were able to get me back in the OR, and they swapped out the tube and replaced the tube. I don't know if the first one just wasn't placed properly. They didn't really go into detail about that. But the second one that I had was so much better. It felt so much better. And then they also put me on a better pain medicine regimen to help me. That was rough. So I had that feeding tube for a little while, and this was before I had started radiation therapy. I was changing my son's diaper, and he was a toddler, and he was kind of throwing a fit, and he had accidentally tugged on the G-tube. And he didn't mean to. I mean, he was 2 years old. It was an accident, you know. It didn't come out, but it definitely dislodged it. So I had to go back, and they pulled it out. And I was like, I am done. No more feeding tubes. At that point, I was able to eat mashed potatoes. I was able to eat soft foods like macaroni and Jell-O and yogurt. So I was like, you know what? I couldn't chew yet, but I was willing to learn. I was willing to try. I didn't want a feeding tube. So I started radiation therapy, and I wasn't doing so well. About a week in, I started to decline. I was getting sores in my mouth, and I was unable to swallow again. And the doctor that was seeing me said, you have to go get another G-tube. Like, this isn't a choice. You have to go get one, or we can't finish your treatment. So back to the hospital for another surgery, and they kept me overnight. I was terrified to have this G-tube placed again, because my experience the first time was horrible. The first time and the second time was horrible. But thankfully, this last time that I had it, I had minimal pain. The tube worked really well. So that time, I had a pleasant experience. Finally. And it's a good thing that I actually had it placed, because a couple days after, I had completely lost my taste buds, and I was completely unable to swallow. Yeah. So they had me on what is called a continuous feed. And basically what that is I had a backpack, and I was always attached to it. Some people have what's called like a button where they can just attach to the tube, like they screw it on when they need to, but I was on it continuously. I wasn't able to do like one big feed at a time, or I would throw it up, and that was horrible because I had the hole in my mouth. It would come out my nose. It was just a horrible ordeal. So, hello. I remember one time, my ex-husband, my husband at the time, did a gravity feed when I had my NG tube, and here's a picture. So that's what that looks like, and he poured it in, and I instantly threw it back out, like Exorcist style. It was bad. Anyways, this is my personal experience on my feeding tubes. Third time around. Third time's the charm, I guess, was fine, but those first 2 times were a little rough. And my experience is not going to be like everyone else's experience. Some people have a fine time with their feeding tubes. I did not want them, did not like them, but I would not have made it through my treatment without them. 100% wouldn't be able to do it. So if you're going through some cancer treatment and your doctor says that you need a feeding tube, he's probably right. You probably need a feeding tube. And I've talked to many people that have reached out, and they've asked me, like, should I get this? Do you think I need this? And I'm like, yeah. Especially if right now you think everything is going okay. You just started radiation therapy. Maybe the blisters are just starting and you think you're going to be okay. Listen to me when I tell you. You're going to need a feeding tube. Most definitely. If it's uncomfortable at all, you need to tell them, because there's a possibility the placement wasn't right. But I just think I had bad luck. Because I know plenty of people who've not had any bad situations at all with any bad placements, or people who've had good experiences. So my experience, the first couple times wasn't good around, but that doesn't mean that's going to be your experience. Yeah, so I had the feeding tube for about 6 months, and then I was given the okay to get rid of it, and I went to speech therapy to learn how to swallow and chew my food again, which was awesome. That was my favorite type of speech class to go to, because I'm a foodie and I love food, and I love that. Anyways, I hope you guys are doing well. I hope this video was helpful. I really hope I didn't scare anyone. That's not the purpose of this video. I just like to be really true and honest when given my own experience. I hope you guys have a great day. Remember to keep living and keep going and keep pushing through. I hope you subscribe to my channel and like this video, and I will see you in the next one.